Welcome, listener, to the Wiggly Podcast. If you're a regular listener, you'll know all about the show, but if you're new, you can expect a weekly half hour of country life to wiggle its way into your heart and your mind. Richard, the slogan for this week
is spontaneous, spunky spiel, sowing the seeds of inspirational gardening.
Good Lord. What's on this week? I want to ask you a bit about owls.
Right.
Monty is popping in a little while with his Wormcast, and he's also here to tell us about his TV appearance.
Mega stardom, yeah.
Heather features in Grow Your Own, so we'll speak about that. And Phil has got a rant today, so we'll have to put up with a Phil rant.
Phil rant.
Ooh, tedious. We've got Anne coming to talk about the bouquets and the flowers and her life on the farm.
Great.
So first of all, hello, Mont. First day of the school holidays for you?
Yeah.
Yippee!
Well, half a day.
Half a day.
So, Monty, you've come to tell us today about your mega stardom, haven't you?
Yeah.
Week before last, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what show were you on?
Paul O'Grady Show.
You were, yeah. How did you end up being invited to go down there?
I don't completely know, but my mum, I was just going upstairs and my mum said, "Do you want to be on TV?" I was like, okay.
So you said yeah.
Yeah.
And did you know what you were going to be talking about at that time? Not
No.
really. What did you talk about?
Worms.
That's right, you were talking about a can of worms.
I nearly scared Paul off.
Was he a nice bloke?
Yeah.
What kind of things did he ask you?
He asked me what trays are, what if you can put any other sorts of worms and what worms they are in there.
Yeah. So all sorts of interesting stuff, really. All the kind of things that you know about,
Mm-hmm.
natural history things. And you know, I watched the show, and they turned on that wormery, didn't they? The tap on the wormery, and there was like mountains and gallons of liquid gushing forth.
I went over and there wasn't a tap. I was like, uh-oh.
So do you think they filled it up beforehand, or is that the real worm juice?
That was just, well, I think so. The real worm juice, but
It wasn't.
it's coir block.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was Coir Block, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And they totally cheated.
Oh.
Well, didn't they?
Yeah.
Monty doesn't want to give away his
He does,
secrets.
'cause
He
he's-
doesn't want to give his
it's like-
secrets of the trade. No, he's a celebrity. No, so you had a co-celebrity as well, didn't you, on the show?
Olivia.
What was she like? Was she nice?
Yeah.
No. I suppose it was all...
We were going to do our cue cards, but we were running out of time, so we didn't.
So, yeah, because it's live, isn't it, that
Yeah.
Paul O'Grady show? So
Do you
I
want a
think
chance
it's
to
quite
do them now, then?
Okay.
Go on, then.
Each ton of recycled paper can save 17 trees.
Right.
A single recycled aluminium can saves enough energy to run a TV up for 3 hours.
Wow. That's impressive. Okay, so you had a good time anyway?
Yeah.
Do you think you'll be happy to go on television again?
Yeah.
Well, we'll all look forward to your next appearance then, old chum.
Hopefully you'll get to say something else besides yep at that point.
Yep. Yeah.
Thank you, Monty.
Cheers, Mont.
We've had lots of customers asking us about owls
Right.
this winter, Rich.
Right,
And my brother, Billy,
Yeah.
has just got himself an owl tube.
right.
And he wants to know where to put it up to have the best chance of having a tawny owl roost or nest in it.
Right, well, that's interesting. The most important thing with a tube is to strap it probably to underneath a branch that's kind of horizontal. It needs to be pointing north, northeast, so away from the prevailing conditions.
There's a hole in the top of the tube, isn't there?
There is. Those tubes are in effect just tubes, aren't they? So already what you're doing is you're trying to incorporate a hole where a bird can nest in the tree.
Yeah, so a hollow tree trunk.
That's right. So you're
Most of those have gone.
That's right. So in many respects, you're just providing an artificial hollow tree trunk.
Yeah.
Because owls, they do like to nest in dry hollows in trees. There's interesting enough where I live. I drove up to the pub on Saturday night, and I had a couple of friends in the back of the car, and I said, "Well, I'm going to slow down, guys, in this tree." And there's often a barn owl. You often see a barn owl in this tree. Sure enough, there he was. And we sat, and he could just see his chest glowing white, in the edge of the lights.
Yeah.
But in the summertime, I can drive past there, and he'll sit right on the entrance to the tree. And it's a pollarded willow, you know, and it's obviously kind of rotten in the middle.
Yeah.
But that's where that guy lives, and he's been there a couple of years now. So that's but that's very, very important for owls, which again is why it's quite important to leave dead trees if you can, rather than cut them down. You know, tidiness in the countryside is often quite problematic for wildlife.
Other owls, like little owls, we keep hearing them shrieking here.
Yeah, well, you've got.
Can you do your impression of the little owl for me?
It's sort of a little owl. A little owl sort of is a continuous kind of shriek, 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 and they used to get called scritch owls. You know, the local dialogue around here was a scritch owl.
Yeah.
And in fact, my godfather still calls little owls scritch owls.
They go on, don't they?
They do. They go on for quite a long time, and you'll also hear them in the daytime. Little owls are quite, you know, they're often working in the day. They like worms and beetles and things like that, so they're often about in the daytime. The tawnies and barn owls are quite much more nocturnal, especially tawny owls. You tend to hear them just as it's getting dark, and then, you know, throughout the night. And again, towards the end of the year, you'll tend to hear tawny owls when the young have come out of their nests, because they're, you know, really kind of talking amongst one another and obviously trying to get encouraging their parents to feed them. And then, you know, it does tend to be that the adults are a lot more vocal in the autumn and winter time.
The place that Billy wants to put his owl tube up is away from all roads, so it's near to our cutting patch actually. Right. But it's by a pond. Yeah. Is that a good thing, or?
Yeah, I don't see why not. It's interesting. I often think that the ideal situation for an owl nest box is well away from a road.
Yeah.
And it's often advised for barn owls that they won't nest within 3 miles of a road. I've read that, but it's not quite true, you know, because that tree I was talking about, that's 20 yards away from it's only a small one-track road, but it's small. It's 20 yards away from a country lane. I've seen tawny owl nest boxes within 50 yards of a busy main road, admittedly in a wooded area, but within 50 yards of it, and they are populated with tawnies.
They obviously haven't read that piece of news.
That's right. Again, you see, it's, you know, you can. It's very difficult to state absolutes in nature.
Yeah.
These animals, if they find a suitable habitat that they consider to be right, then they'll colonise it. You know?
Time to take advantage of the Harry Potter high profile for owls and
put
your nest box up there.
That's right. Can't harm. I mean, there tends to be lots of small mammal life in various places. Banks can be full of voles, for instance. But if you haven't got the habitat around for the owls, then the owls won't be there. But if you put the habitat there, you get the owls, and there's the food source there. So, you know, it completes the equation.
And time to put the box up? Well, anytime.
Anytime. If you want, generally, again, I'm kind of generalising, but if you want a bird to nest in there in the spring, owls will probably be looking to nest kind of April, May, June. Then really you need to put the nest box up right now, you know, so that they can get used to it being there. Ideal Christmas present.
There we are. Thank you, Richard.
No problem. Heather's just popped out to fetch Phil, so I'm just looking in a magazine called Grow Your Own. We do a feature in here, a questions and answers feature, as a monthly kind of contribution to this magazine. It's under Organic Experts. Heather is answering a question from someone who's asking whether or not worms will help to improve their compost, because they'd like to have a much nicer consistency compost to dig into the garden. So Heather's answered by saying that worms are a useful addition to virtually any compost heap. They reduce the volume of waste dramatically while aerating the heap. And of course, she's absolutely right. Interesting magazine, actually, this. And next month's question, Heather's going to answer one about calcified seaweed and using that as a soil improver. There are lots of different sort of implications of using calcified seaweed, so it'll be interesting to see what she comes up with. Okay, and now they're back.
Now then, Rich.
Yeah.
Love a duck. Here is Philip.
Excellent.
Hi, you both. All right?
Yeah.
Very good.
All the better for seeing you.
Thank you very much. Good to see you too, Richard.
Cheers, thanks for that.
Now, let's cut all this wish-wash, because this morning, Phil, there was something on the telly that made you mad. There was 3 different opinions which didn't suit Phil.
Right.
Because his was missing.
I see.
So could we have this rant?
Well, I suppose it's a bit of a rant, but the other day we were talking about TB in cattle and the relationship to badgers. Yeah. And today the government are publishing the report of their trials on slaughtering badgers or not slaughtering them, and the effect it's had on TB. And on the telly this morning, we had the news sort of preempting this, and we had the badger protection group who were basically saying that the farmers should pay for everything and it was the cattle's fault.
Just a minute. Come in, Toast. Sit. Thank you. Good
And
dog.
then on the other side of the argument, we had a farmer who very sadly had had his entire herd slaughtered a fortnight ago, so he was none too happy with the prospect of any of it.
No.
And we had the scientist from Reading University who was sort of basically asked the question, what do you think the report that hasn't been published yet is going to say? And to cut a long story short, there was no mention of what I think is a constructive solution to it, i.e., there's no point in slaughtering anything. TB harms both cattle and badgers.
Yeah.
And they missed the point, in my view. And they were just talking about, from the one side, the farmers should pay and slaughter their cattle and test them more often. And from the other side, there's some evidence to show that slaughtering badgers increases the incidence of TB in cattle in those areas, presumably because of the stress and the fact that TB-infested badgers come into the population gap. And I just felt they hadn't addressed the problem, and they weren't likely to at that rate.
No,
And there is a
that's right.
vaccine.
Well, the use of what we know as a BCG vaccine has possible...
Oh, I remember that. The jab in the
Uses.
top of your arm.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Remember at school?
Yeah.
Well, it works well in humans, and it works moderately in cattle and possibly badgers. But it seems to me that that's much more sensible way of going on, rather than slaughtering either
right.
cattle or badgers.
Forward
And
thinking,
whether the
isn't it?
farmer pays or the public pays, it's an expensive way to get rid of money pointlessly, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a political animal, isn't he?
He's right, isn't he? He's right.
Yeah, he's
got
probably
some good,
right.
good sense of thought. It's sustainable development Phil's looking at. That's the thing. What's sustainable? What's going to continue? What's going to make a real difference?
Absolutely. So if you want to argue your case with Phil, you can email him at pwg@lowerblakemere.co.uk.
That's the one.
And if you want to support Phil, do the same thing.
Yeah.
We'll see where we go with it.
So TB aside, you've had some more adventures this week, haven't you?
We have, yes. We've both been on a course.
Yes.
And we didn't fall out during it.
So that's one good thing. That was one good outcome of the 2 days. Were you inspired by the course?
Well, basically, it was a 2-day course run by LEAF, who are an organisation linking environment and agriculture, or linking environment and farming, strictly speaking.
Right.
And they've got a DEFRA-sponsored scheme going where us farmers go on a media and facilitation course so that we can run farm walks and meetings that are actually enjoyable and informative for those who come to them.
Brilliant.
And so that's what we were doing.
Some of
what
the
we do.
people on the course were inspiring in their own right.
Yeah.
There was Charlotte, who is raising £800,000 to buy a community farm, Ford Hall Farm.
Right.
There was John, who's been interested in wildflowers since he was in shorts at school up on some mountain or other.
Derbyshire Peak he
Yeah.
lived on the top of somewhere.
Yeah.
There was Tim Downs, who writes a column in the Farmers Weekly.
Right.
There was Lord Plum's son, John, who was interested in mentoring.
Right.
And so there was this whole range of really interesting people on the course.
Yeah.
And the course was the first day was run by Susie Emmett, who is a BBC
Tracy.
World Service journalist and one of the from our correspondence
Right.
people.
Right.
So it was quality.
Good. Well, it must have been quality, because I was expecting for you to say, "God, it was crap, Rich." But so I was quite taken aback when he said, "Oh, it was really, really good. I had a great time and learned loads of stuff." So I think for you to say that, it must have been very good.
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
And we will tell you all about it at some future date.
Right.
Just to say that we had to do our practice talk at the end of the course, and Phil did his on.
Well, I was supposed to be doing it on a farm walk, but I saw the error of my ways, and my next attempt will be better.
Right.
He did his on something like agriculture through the ages, including subsidies and such like.
Well, not exactly.
This is what,
Guess what I did mine
what
on?
did you do yours on? Yeah.
I called my talk "The Farmer Wants a Wife,"
Right.
and I then changed it to "The Farmer Wants a Voice,"
Right.
and I did it on podcasting.
Well, There you are.
And inspired them to go and download some podcast or another at the end of the day.
Right.
And so I don't know whether they did, but they seemed like they
Yeah.
may.
She did show off a bit, Rich.
Yeah, I can I can well imagine. Yeah.
But it was great to be in a group of people who were so optimistic. There wasn't a moaning farmer in the room, and that was great.
There was.
Well, they soon got it out of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if there's one thing, I mean, we can't talk about this for hours on end, but there's one thing you got out of the 2 days, what would it be, Heather?
Really, for me, it was the fact that farming is having this moment of complete oppression, and really, there's these amazing people that haven't got a voice.
Yeah.
And that they're desperate to show people around their farms and, let them see the animals in the fields and let them see the hedges which they loved. And at the moment, there's no channel.
Yeah.
And these farm walks and talks was a way out for them. So it was an inspiration to realise that there's these farmers there that have got some amazing stories to say.
Yeah. So
Bit corny, that,
born
wasn't it?
from
But
oppression.
it was true.
Phil.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing I learnt was that as farmers, how we present ourselves is critical to how we turn round our attitude to ourselves.
Right.
So that if we read the Farmers Weekly, the first 6 pages are depressing negative headlines.
He
The
showed me them
positive
today.
ones
Right.
come on page 7 onwards. How we present ourselves will turn that round. We'll have the positive headlines first, and then anything negative will be afterwards. And
That makes perfect sense.
Right, and
Good.
from one big farmer to a little one, a budding farmer, bring it on, Monty!
The Wiggly Wormcast podcast by Monty, a weekly fact on worms. Worms can grow a new tail, but not grow a new head if it is cut off.
Richard,
Heather.
sometimes I describe our podcast and our company as a mixture between the Haynes Motor Manual and the Darling Buds of May.
Yeah, you do.
I say the Darling Buds of May evokes this image of our garden and our life,
Yep.
and Haynes Motor Manual tells you exactly how to achieve it on whatever scale.
Yeah.
Now, we have Ma Larkin herself coming in today.
We do.
We do.
Yeah.
Anne, who makes our bouquets. Welcome, Anne.
Hello.
And tell me about how you first got into flowers.
Well, I was very young and my mother had a wonderful garden. We had gravel path and I used to pick up the stones and I used to put them on a plate, usually her best plates. And I used to pick all the pretty little heads off the flowers and I used to make gardens on a plate.
Oh,
And I used to get a piece of glass and a mirror and make it into a pond and get my little ducks and things from the toy farm and I used to put those on the pond. And yeah, I just always loved flowers.
you went to boarding school at Worcester.
I
didn't
did,
you?
yes.
Yesterday we went through Worcester and Anne said that you threw your boater.
I threw my boater in the river, yes, on the last day
Yeah.
and watched it sail away, which was wonderful.
So what happened after that then?
Well, I met Elliot, my husband, at Young Farmers, which
Yeah.
is like the marriage bureau. Across the smoke-filled room, I saw this handsome man looking at me, and that was it. It would just clicked. He then told me that he was going to New Zealand for 6 months.
Right.
So off he went for 6 months, and I waited faithfully for him.
Oh, that's sweet.
Then we got married sort of 6 months later.
Wow. A whirlwind romance.
It was wonderful, yes, yeah.
Through your married life, you've really been a major part of the farm rather than a flower arranger, haven't you?
Oh yes, flowers have always come second. Well, down the list anyway.
Yeah.
Yes, I've always helped on the farm with the lambing, which is coming up soon, which is a very busy time, and calving. And then we have the harvest in the autumn. So I actually drive one of the combines, which is great fun.
Do
But,
you?
it's not a modern one, it has no cab.
No cab.
So we do get the sun and we do get the dust.
Ah.
Right.
Have you got one of those things that goes over your head?
Oh yes, but you can't hear anything in those, so I don't
Right.
wear them. I just wear a mask.
It's a great picture that's brought up in my mind.
Oh,
of
thank
Anne
you.
rolling up and down the fields. But you've always kept up your flower arranging because I know you've done many competitions and church flowers.
I have, yes. And
And then you went on a course, I think.
I did. I went on a 3-year course, which we went from the Egyptian times right up to the modern day, which was very, very interesting. It was a course I didn't want to end.
Really?
Yes, it was so interesting. And we also did garden design.
They are a bit fantastic, your bouquets, though, aren't they? They are really smart.
They're all the sort of flowers that we love.
Yeah.
Just like I've gone to my mother's or my grandmother's garden and just picked a bunch of real flowers.
Yeah. Do you think you're the reason why you're perhaps so good at putting these bouquets together and sourcing the right types of English flowers is because you were able to empathise with the countryside and know what plants do what at certain times of the year before you went on the course? I mean, before you went on the course, do you think you would have had that kind of instinct anyway?
I think I probably did.
Yeah.
I had the instinct because I just love putting the right things together.
Yeah.
And just going for a walk in the fields and finding some interesting piece of wood or certain flowers that are out,
Yeah.
or leaves or the beautiful colours, and it's just lovely to put them all together.
Yeah.
And Elliot helps you now in
He
some
does.
ways.
He's wonderful. He comes down to the cutting patch.
Yeah.
He'll come down and he'll help me pick the flowers, which is wonderful. I've never really seen him pick flowers before. The only flowers he's ever given me are the ones he's actually driven over a daffodil going up the road with a tractor. And he'll jump off the tractor, pick it up and say, "Here you are, darling, I brought you something." And it's usually quite a mangled daffodil, but the thought's there.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And he also finds things on the farm that
He does.
that can be used in the bouquets.
He's found all the trees with ivy on.
Really?
The ivy needs to come off anyway because
Yeah.
it's strangling the trees.
Yeah.
So he's been putting me up in the Mapro bucket and hoisting me up.
Health and safety, darling.
Yeah.
Health and safety.
Hold on, he says, hold on.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. That's
And
the
don't
best
stand
health
too
and
near the
safety,
edge.
yeah. Hold on. Just hold
Tails
on
for
tight.
the farm.
And
Yeah.
he hoists me all the way up to the top of the trees, and I just cut the ivy off. Then put it in a bucket, and then we use it for most of the bouquets at the moment because it has these beautiful berries. We pick buckets of flowers and bring them back home and condition them and use them on the Monday morning.
When you say condition them, how do you mean? What do you do with them?
Well, it means some of them need different treatments when you pick them.
Right.
Some need laying in water, others need just dunking in water. Some need water up to their necks and then obviously limit it after.
So it's a lot more, it's more sort of intricate, isn't it? It's more complicated
It
than
is.
people imagine.
That's right.
It's not just a question of going and
No,
pruning the beds.
not
and,
really.
sticking them all together.
No.
So would you say you've got a favourite type of flower?
I love the tulips
Yeah.
because you plant this little bulb and then you see the shoot come up and then this beautiful flower appears.
Yeah.
And it has a will of its own, which is so nice. You pick it and you put it in water, you condition it, and then you think it's going straight up. And then next time you look, it's gone wayward and it's sort of gone whoosh.
Yeah.
It does certainly has a way of its own, but
They
it's
are
a
beautiful,
beautiful
aren't they?
flower. Yeah. We've just planted, I think it's 3,000 tulip bulbs in the cutting patch.
Right.
Yeah, we heard about that from
3,000.
Jodie, didn't we?
Yeah,
So
so
that'd
there's
be-
some real colour there.
Yes, it'd be fantastic.
Nice, yeah.
Good. Well, it's lovely to have had you in to hear all about Anne life, Ma Larkin for real. And we'll see you tomorrow because you're bringing some bouquets in.
I am,
think.
yes. I'll
Lovely.
get cracking.
Thank you.
Okay then.
Thanks, Anne.
Okay, bye.
The Wiggly Podcast, blooming iPods.
If you are buying that loved one an iPod, we promise there'll be a Wiggly Podcast on Boxing Day to inspire them in their garden and in their daily life. But just to end, we've got a little song for you all. Take it away, Monty.
Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride on a one-horse open sleigh. Hey!
Where
Well
were you,
done.
Rick?
Well
you,
done.
Richard?
Well done. That's a
There's gotta be
No,
a different
that's
solo
not
here
right.
to match
Yeah.
the
No, I don't think so.
mixes.
The Gorringe family affair.
No, no.